The rope almost snapped. If you want to understand what really happens when a rescue hangs on a single decision, stay with me. Subscribe now. This story isn't about heroics. It's about the moment when experience is the only thing standing between life and gravity. I felt it stretch, not a dramatic snap, not a loud crack, just that subtle, unmistakable give beneath my hands. The kind of sensation that bypasses thought and goes straight to instinct. Rope doesn't lie. When it stretches like that, it's telling you something important. The call came in late afternoon. Missing person, forest, steep terrain. Hiker, early 40s, went off trail, last seen heading toward a ridgeline known for unstable slopes. Weather was turning. Not storming yet, but cold enough to punish anyone who stopped moving. I remember tightening my gloves before we rolled out, feeling the familiar stiffness in my fingers. After enough years, your body reacts before your mind does. Not fear, readiness, a quiet awareness that this wasn't going to be a short walk in the woods. We staged at the base of the ridge as daylight started to fade. The forest smelled damp and heavy, like wet stone and crushed leaves. The ground was slick from earlier rain, and every rock looked polished smooth. I looked up at the slope and already knew this was going to be technical. I briefed the team carefully. Rope systems would be mandatory. No free movement on the incline, redundancy on every anchor, no shortcuts. I've seen confidence turn into casualties when terrain gets underestimated. As we moved uphill, the angle increased faster than it looked from below. Trees grew thinner. Roots twisted across the surface like skeletal fingers, offering grip in some places and traps in others. The silence deepened the higher we went. No wind, no birds, just controlled breathing and the sound of gear shifting with each step. We found signs of him about an hour in. A scuffed patch of mud, a broken branch bent downhill, a trail that told a story without words. He'd lost footing and slid. Tried to recover, failed. Gravity had taken over. That's when the terrain stopped being difficult and started being dangerous. The slope dropped sharply into a narrow chute filled with loose rock and fallen debris. Below it, nothing but darkness. If he'd gone down that way, he wouldn't have stopped gently. We anchored above and began a cautious descent. Every movement deliberate, weight transferred slowly. I felt the rope through my hands, alive, responsive. Rope is communication. It tells you what the mountain won't. About 20 feet down, I saw him. He was wedged against a small outcrop, legs twisted unnaturally beneath him, one arm hooked around a root like it was the only thing keeping him from disappearing into the void below. His helmet was cracked, blood dried along his temple, eyes open. Too open. He was conscious but barely. I spoke to him calmly, telling him who we were, telling him not to move. His breathing was shallow, fast. Pain was keeping him awake. Shock was waiting for its turn. We assessed from where we were. Possible pelvic injury. Leg fracture. No clear spinal compromise, but the angle made everything uncertain. This wasn't a quick haul. This was going to be slow, technical, and unforgiving. We set additional anchors. Redundancy on top of redundancy. Every knot checked twice. I watched the younger firefighters closely, not because I didn't trust them, but because I knew this was where pressure tested discipline. As we began to adjust the system to stabilize him, I felt the rope change. Not sudden, not violent. It stretched. Just enough to register. Just enough to make my heart rate spike in a way it hadn't in years. I shifted my grip instinctively, testing tension, reading feedback through calloused hands that had learned this language a long time ago. The anchor held, barely. I looked up and met the eyes of the firefighter managing the primary line. He felt it too. No words needed. We both understood what that meant. The margin was thinner than we liked. We halted immediately. No movement, no adjustments. Just stillness while we recalculated. The forest seemed to lean in closer, like it was listening. I radioed command with an update. Patient located. Critical position. Rope system under high load. Extraction possible but high risk. That sentence carried weight. It meant the next decisions wouldn't be clean. The man looked at me then, eyes glassy but focused enough to read my face. He asked one question, barely audible. Am I going to fall? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because timing matters. Words can stabilize or destabilize, just like rope. I told him the truth that mattered. We've got you. Don't move. Listen to my voice. He nodded, jaw clenched, pain etched into every muscle. His grip on the root tightened, knuckles white, as if letting go would end everything. I could feel sweat running down my back despite the cold. My forearms burned from holding position, tension locked in, muscles screaming not to relax. This is where experience earns its keep. Panic wastes strength. Control preserves it. If you're still listening, stay with me. Subscribe now. Because this is where rescues either become recoveries or regrets. The rope had stretched, and we weren't done asking it to hold. When the rope stretched, time slowed in a way that only happens when consequences are immediate. Every sound sharpened, every sensation amplified. I could feel the fibers through my gloves, that subtle vibration that tells you the system is under more stress than it wants to admit. We held position. No one moved. Even the injured man seemed to understand instinctively that stillness mattered. His breathing was loud now, each inhale shallow, each exhale shaky. Pain does that. So does fear. I scanned the system quickly, mentally tracing every component. Anchor points, knots, angles, load distribution. The problem wasn't a single failure. It was cumulative weight. Him, US. The terrain pulling constantly downhill, impatient, relentless. I made the call to reset. That decision always feels heavier than pushing forward. Resetting means admitting the current setup isn't good enough. It costs time, it costs energy, but it saves lives. We added a secondary anchor higher up, equalized it carefully, redistributed the load inch by inch. My shoulders screamed as we shifted tension, but I welcomed the pain. Pain means you're still in control. Numbness is what scares me. The rope settled again, tighter, more stable, not perfect. Nothing ever is in terrain like this, but better. I leaned closer to the man and spoke quietly, close enough that only he could hear me. Told him what we were doing. Told him the rope had flexed, not failed. Words matter. Precision matters. He nodded slowly, eyes fixed on my face like it was the only solid thing left in his world. We began packaging him where he was, slow movements. Every adjustment announced before it happened. His body reacted to each shift with a sharp intake of breath, muscles tensing despite the pain. I watched his face closely, looking for signs of shock deepening. Pale skin, glassy eyes, delayed responses. At one point, his grip on the root loosened slightly. Panic flared instantly in his eyes. I reached out and placed my hand firmly on his shoulder. Don't let go yet. We've got you. Just a little longer. He tightened his grip again, jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscles jump. Trust is a fragile thing when you're hanging over nothing. I felt the weight of that trust press down harder than the rope ever could. Once he was secured in the litter, we transferred load carefully, millimeter by millimeter. This was the moment that worried me most. Transition phases are where systems fail. Where assumptions hide. The rope creaked softly, not loudly. Just enough to remind us that physics was still in charge. My forearms trembled now, muscles pushed past comfort into necessity. Sweat dripped from my helmet, stinging my eyes. I blinked it away, refusing to look down. Looking down serves no purpose in moments like this. We started the ascent. Upward movement on a slope like this isn't about strength. It's about coordination. Everyone moving as one. Tension adjusted smoothly, no jerks, no sudden shifts. The rope felt alive again, responding to each micro-adjustment. Halfway up, one of the firefighters slipped slightly, boots sliding on wet rock before catching. The system absorbed the movement, but the jolt traveled through the rope like a warning shot. Hold, freeze. We locked in place, bodies rigid, muscles burning. The injured man cried out softly, pain flaring from the movement. I spoke to him immediately, grounding him, keeping him present. Panic spreads faster than fire if you let it. After a long few seconds, everything settled again. No further movement. No additional stretch. The anchors held. We moved again, slower this time, more deliberate. Fatigue was setting in. The kind that dulls reaction time if you don't respect it. I forced myself to slow my breathing, to stay inside my body instead of fighting it. This is where experience earns its place. Not in dramatic moves, but in restraint. If you're still listening, stay with me. Subscribe now. Because this is the stretch where many rescues fail. Not because of equipment, but because people stop listening to what the rope is telling them. The top of the slope was still frustratingly far away. Headlamps above us marked the edge like distant stars. My legs shook with each step, but I trusted them to hold as long as my mind stayed clear. The rope didn't stretch again. That didn't mean we were safe yet. It only meant we had another chance to get it right. The final meters felt heavier than the entire climb combined. Not because the slope changed, but because the margin for error was gone. We had used up the slack, the time, and most of our strength. What remained was focus. My legs shook with every controlled step, not violently, just enough to remind me they were tired. My hands burned inside my gloves, fingers stiff from gripping rope under load for too long. Each breath felt shallow, not from panic, but from the body conserving energy whether I wanted it to or not. The injured man was quieter now. Not unconscious, but withdrawn. That worried me. Pain can keep someone awake for a while. Cold and shock eventually take over. I stayed close, speaking to him even when he didn't answer. Names, simple instructions, reassurance. Sound is a lifeline when sensation fades. We reached the final transition point where the slope softened just enough to change the angle of the system. This was the last technical move. The one that would either release the pressure or amplify it dangerously. I called for a stop and scanned everything again. Anchors, knots, lines, faces. Everyone was exhausted, but no one looked reckless. That mattered. Fatigue without discipline is deadly. Fatigue with discipline is manageable. We adjusted the system carefully, redistributing the load as the angle changed. The rope responded smoothly. No sudden give, no warning tremor. Just tension doing what it was designed to do. When the litter finally came onto more stable ground, I felt my shoulders drop involuntarily. Not relief exactly, release, like a clenched fist opening slowly. Paramedics moved in immediately. Efficient, quiet, focused, warm blankets, oxygen. 4 started. The injured man reacted almost instantly, like his body had been holding itself together on borrowed time. I stepped back then. My part was done. That's another thing experience teaches you. Know when to let go. As they prepared to move him to the ambulance, he looked at me. His eyes were clearer now, still clouded with pain but anchored. He tried to speak, couldn't. Instead, he gave a small nod. I returned it. Nothing more was needed. The ambulance lights cut through the forest, red and white flashing against trees that had looked so hostile just hours earlier. The doors closed, the engine started, and the mountain released its grip. Only then did the tremor start in my hands. Adrenaline finally stepping aside, letting reality settle in. I flexed my fingers slowly, grounding myself in the sensation. Sore, cold, alive. We packed up in near silence. Not because there was nothing to say, but because words felt unnecessary. These moments are personal. Each person processes them in their own way. On the walk back down, I looked at the slope one last time. It looked ordinary again, just earth, rock, and trees. That's how terrain hides its teeth. Back at the station later, after gear was cleaned and reports written, I sat alone for a while. Helmet on the table, rope coiled neatly beside it. I ran my hand along the fibers without thinking, feeling for damage. A habit I never skip. The rope had done its job. It had stretched, warned us, held. It hadn't failed. But it had reminded us of something important. Equipment doesn't save lives by itself. People do. People who listen, who respect feedback, who know when to stop and reset instead of forcing an outcome. That call stays with me. Not because it went wrong, but because it almost did. Because I can still feel that stretch in my hands when the night is quiet enough. If you've listened this far, stay with me. Subscribe. These stories aren't about thrill. They're about responsibility. About understanding that every system has limits, and experience is knowing when you're close to them. That rope almost snapped. Because we listened when it spoke, it didn't. And somewhere, a man got another morning he didn't think he'd see.